It's a great day, everyone. I am back to discuss with you phrases, clauses, and sentences. To start with, let's have a brief review of the 8 parts of speech. These parts of speech are basics in English, yet most students are not completely familiar with them. It's now time for you to memorize this because they are the essentials in learning English. We have first the noun. It is used to name people, objects, or ideas. For example, Adnan is an intelligent young man. We have here the nouns Adnan and man. Another part of speech is pronoun. A pronoun is used in place of a noun. We use it to replace the name of person, place, things, animal, etc. For example, I have built a house. We use the pronoun I to replace the name of the person who built the house. Another part of speech is adverb. It refers to a word that describes a verb, an adjective, and another adverb. For example, I am going now. Adjective is used to describe or qualify a noun. For example, she is a pretty child. The adjective is pretty and it describes the noun child. Another part of speech is preposition. It is used to show the relation of one thing to another. For example, we went about the world. There are a lot of prepositions and we also have in, on, above, and a lot more. Another part of speech is verb. Verb is used to describe an action. For example, Ali went to Karachi. The verb in the sentence is went because this is the action word. Another part of speech is conjunction. It is used to join words or group of words to one another. For example, and, or, so, after, neither, etc. The last part of speech is interjection. It is used to express some sudden rush of feeling or excitement. For example, alas! We have lost the match. Now, let us talk about a phrase. Phrase is a group of words that stands together as a single grammatical unit, typically as part of a clause or a sentence. It cannot stand alone. It does not contain a subject and a verb, and it does not give a complete idea. It also consists of an article, preposition, or noun. The examples of article are a, an, and the. Remember, phrase acts as a noun, an adjective, or an adverb in a sentence. It is a group of related words which lacks a subject and a verb that acts as a single part of speech in a sentence. For example, swimming in the pool. This phrase has no subject, but we call it a verb phrase because it starts with the verb or the action word swimming. Another example is in the bag. It also does not have subject and verb, but we call it a prepositional phrase because it starts with the preposition in. Another example is the policeman. It doesn't have the verb, but it has a noun, which is the policeman. Therefore, we call it noun phrase. Another one is quickly writing. We call this an adverb phrase primarily because it starts with an adverb quickly. Now let's talk about clause. When we say clause, it is a group of words as well, but this time it has both the subject and the verb. Sometimes a clause acts as a sentence, but is not always the case. We have 2 types of clauses. They are independent clause, which means it can stand alone, and the dependent clause, which means it cannot stand alone. Let us now focus on the independent clause. An independent clause has a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. For example, I went to the store but I didn't buy any bread. The underlying group of words I went to the store is an example of an independent clause because it has the subject I and the verb went. It also has a complete thought or idea which we can understand clearly. Another example, when Ronnie gets here, we will go to the mall. It also is an independent clause because it has the subject we and the verb will go. Lastly, until the sun sets, I will stay with you. Which do you think is the independent clause in the sentence? Alright, great. The answer is I will stay with you because this clause has the subject I and the verb will stay, and at the same time it expresses a complete idea. What about a dependent clause? A dependent clause needs to be attached or joined to an independent clause. We call it dependent because it depends on the independent clause. It is a supporting part of a sentence, and it begins with subordinating conjunctions such as before, if, when, after, so, hence, therefore, since, and because, so that, etc. For example, because I can't wait, I will go walking. The underlying group of words is an example of dependent clause because it starts with the subordinating conjunction because, and it is attached to an independent clause which is I will go walking. Number 2, I will follow him wherever he might go. The underlying group of words is also an example of a dependent clause because it starts with a subordinating conjunction wherever. Whenever you come to visit, make sure to bring food. Which one do you think is the dependent clause in this statement? That is great. The answer is whenever you come to visit, because it is starting with the subordinating conjunction whenever. Here are some of the examples of subordinating conjunctions. Make sure you familiarize yourself with them. These are just some because there are a lot more out there. Let us now proceed with the sentence. Sentence is a set of words that contains a subject and a predicate. Subject refers to what the sentence is about or the topic of the sentence. And then predicate refers to what is said about the subject. It usually begins with the verb. Sentence expresses a complete thought and it begins with a capital letter and ends with a full stop, period, question mark, or exclamation point. It depends on the type or on the need in the sentence. Examples of sentences are, I miss you. Where will you spend your vacation? It was a brilliant idea. It is very important to familiarize yourself with the 4 sentence types because these sentence types will dictate the appropriate punctuation mark that you have to use in the sentence. The first type of sentence is what we call declarative or assertive sentence. It makes a statement. For example, a lie told often enough becomes the truth. In this kind of sentence, you need to use the punctuation mark period. Another type of sentence is interrogative sentence. All you need to remember is that it's a question. For example, what is history but a fable agreed upon? This type of sentence uses the punctuation mark question mark. The third type of sentence is imperative sentence. It gives a command and sometimes a request. For example, get in your tanks. If it's an imperative sentence, you simply need to use period as punctuation mark as well. And remember, imperative sentence may also be in a form of request, meaning to say it uses polite words like please and kindly. Please get in your tanks or kindly get in your tanks. The last type of sentence is what we call exclamatory sentence, and it expresses a strong emotion. For example, ouch, that hurts. That is an exclamatory sentence and we use exclamation point for it. Alright, let's have a very quick recap of our discussion. When we say phrase, it refers to a group of words with incomplete thought or idea. It does not have subject and verb and it's part of a sentence. Clause also refers to a group of words, but it has almost complete thought or idea unlike the phrase. It has subject and verb and it is also part of a sentence. Sentence is group of words with complete thought or idea. It has the subject and the verb, and it is composed of phrase and clause. Okay, let's test your understanding with this activity. Identify whether the underlying group of words is a phrase, a clause, or a sentence. Number 1, I looked for my lost wallet under the bridge. Under the bridge is an example of... Correct, a phrase. Number 2, I waited for my rider to pick me up is an example of... That is right, a sentence. Number 3, because he ran, he was able to catch the bus. Because he ran is an example of... A clause. Specifically, what kind of clause? Great, it is called a dependent clause. Number 4, if the dress is on sale, she will buy it. She will buy it is an example of... A clause. And what kind of clause? That is right, it's an independent clause. And number 5, I left my bag beside the table. This is an example of... Great, a phrase. Let's have another activity. You have to identify whether the underlined clause is dependent or independent. Number 1, unless you show your ID, I will not let you in. The answer is... Great, it is dependent. Number 2, when we get snow, we will go sledding. The answer is... Right, independent. Number three, because I can't wait, I will go walking. This is correct. Dependent clause. Number four, if you work on Saturday, you will not have time. This is an example of a dependent clause. And number five, before the food gets cold, you should eat it. The answer is independent. Alright, you did a great job, everyone. Now remember, every time you feel tired, remind yourself of why you are doing what you are doing and keep going. Thank you so much, everyone, and remember, let's keep on doing great.